Welcome back, folks, to Let's Play The Raven, Legacy of a Master Thief. When last we left off, Constable Zellner thwarted the efforts of Dr. Gebhardt to kill him, and revealed the events that he believed occurred around the death of the Baroness, which were all apparently totally sunk by a confessional letter that the Raven allegedly left, where Dr. Gebhardt admitted to being the Raven and that he had took his own life rather than be captured and put to prison. Zellner doesn't believe this, but the inspector seems to. So, for now, we're just conducting our own investigations in the one day that the Lydia is in dock before we have to go back. Let's talk about the theft of the eye, shall we?
So, the exhibition will still open tonight.
But of course.
Good.
Everything has been arranged. The final preparations are almost complete.
But one of the two exhibits won't be there.
Sadly.
A terrible loss. A tragedy. That irreplaceable Egyptian cultural treasure has been stolen for the second time.
Second?
The second time?
What? Did you really believe that the eye of the Sphinx was found lying on the banks of the Thames?
True. True. Inspector Legrand?
Inspector Legrand, Professor Lucien, and Constable Oliver are overseeing the transportation of the safe. They should be here at any moment. I'll have a look around in the meantime.
Do you think that's necessary? The Raven is dead, after all.
If you mean Dr. Gebhardt, his body was never recovered. Nor the stolen eye of the Sphinx, for that matter.
True.
It does us a great honor that the inspector is concerned about us. But we have everything under control.
How so?
Legrand isn't as concerned as he should be. But I am. Is the museum closed?
Yes. Only carefully selected guests may enter the museum during preparations for the gala. And of course, you're one of them, Mr. Constable.
Excellent. What is the security system like?
What can you tell me about the museum's security system?
One of the best on the market.
Oh?
And the second eye will still be exhibited in our special treasure chamber, which is extra secure.
Extra secure?
Treasure chamber?
See for yourself, to the right of the entrance. The eye is as safe as the British Crown jewels.
We'll see about that. We will see about that.
I think I'll have a look around the museum.
Please do. There's a lot to see.
Okay.
And you let me know if you see Grace, won't you? I hope we find her before the great inspector arrives.
Oh?
Isn't it fantastic how he solved the murder on the ship?
Oh?
Legrand.
Of course. It's in all the newspapers. The murder of the wealthy Baroness von Trebitz, and how the great Inspector Legrand identified the murderer in just one day. It's the stuff legends are made of. You should count yourself lucky to have the chance to learn from him.
I don't think Legrand did that. I think that was us. Someone's been feeding the newspapers lies.
What exactly do the newspapers say?
Everything. It's fantastic. Someone on board must have informed the press immediately. Of course, it's a great advertising for us. The reporters will queue up tonight.
Oh.
And it was reported that Legrand found the murderer.
Of course. Who else?
Well, I wasn't exactly uninvolved.
True.
Of course. Legrand surely has assistants, but honor to he who deserves to be honored, right?
Well then.
Be seeing you, Constable. Grace! Here, Gracie. My sweetheart.
Oh, hello.
Where are you?
Oh, Mr. Inch.
Mr. Inch. There you are.
Hello.
I am so sorry. Baroness von Trebitz was a good-hearted woman. She did so much for the museum.
Inch looks terrified.
As you say, sir.
And you? Are you leaving so soon?
I'd like to go back to my hotel. These last days have been such a strain.
Understandable.
First, you sneak into the museum without greeting me, and then you want to leave just as quickly?
I didn't want to disturb you, and we'll have time enough tonight.
Yes, You simply must come tonight. I wanted to present Baroness von Trebitz with a medal. Now you'll have to accept it.
Of course, if you insist, sir.
The Baroness paid for all this. Without her, there wouldn't have been an exhibition or a gala.
Indeed.
She was very generous.
Yes, she was.
If you'll excuse me now. Constable Zellner, I want to thank you again for all you've done. You saved me, you could say.
Indeed.
My pleasure. See you tonight.
Yeah, Inge didn't like being embraced like that. Well, we're in the museum now. And is the safe coming? Not yet. Here we are. We could check the notes, but we're not going to just yet. We'll do so later on in the chapter. And there is, the guard room. Go outside, no thanks. Ah, Miss Miller's here. It would seem she's waiting for someone. Hello.
Miss Miller, I'm glad to see you here.
Oh, Constable Zellner. I heard what happened to you on board. Awful. Truly awful.
All's well that ends well. You are waiting for Professor Lucien?
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Let us, talk about that.
Were you able to find out why Professor Lucien left the forecastle so suddenly last night?
No, not really. We only had a brief conversation. He was still very nervous.
He was like that on the train as well. Seems to be typical of him.
It must be something to do with the burglary at the museum. It really affected him.
Not surprised.
But he told me not to worry about anything. He said, soon this would all be over.
Really? How did he mean that?
No.
Oh, I didn't ask him, Constable.
Still a potential suspect, though, is, Lucien.
Are there other passengers from the ship here?
Oh, yes, we arrived as a group. David Kreutzer, the violinist, was with us.
Oh?
So were Miss Myers and Mr. Inch. He seems to have gotten over the death of the Baroness pretty quickly. He seems positively relaxed.
Oh?
I've met him. He looks on the bright side of life, so to speak. Where is Mr. Kreutzer?
He's over in the treasure chamber. Maddie is downstairs in the main hall. I'm afraid I'll hear the sound of something priceless shattering any second.
Matt will be careful, Miss Miller.
Now we get to talk about the Nile cruise.
Tomorrow you'll be sailing down the Nile, if I heard correctly.
That's right. I'm sure it will be an amazing experience.
But you don't seem to be very excited.
Oh, but I am. It's very generous of Lady Westmacott to invite me, and especially Maddie. He'll learn a lot.
But?
Well, Professor Lucien offered to join us.
Oh?
Then Matt will learn even more. And I'm sure it won't be unpleasant for you either.
No, I just don't know how Maddie would react if Edgar came with us.
I understand. I could test the water to see how he'd feel about it.
Ah.
Would you do that? Oh, thank you, Constable Zellner.
I'll continue my tour of the museum.
Oh, yes, there's so much to see.
Let's do that. Let us, in fact, go down into the main hall. Because I do believe that's where he is. More importantly, I think that's where Lady Westmacott is. There she is. There's lots of cool stuff to examine here. And we don't get to examine most of it right now. However, we can examine the showcase. We'll eventually get over to Westmacott.
Ah, I've heard of this. Desert glass. In the great sand sea of the Libyan desert, there's a region where natural glass is found. Nobody knows how it formed. The valuable material was often used for jewelry in ancient Egypt.
We can't look at that anymore. What about the daggers? We'll examine those.
Several daggers in a row. The shapes and patterns look timeless, elegant.
Indeed. And we examine them more.
What does it say here? The dagger on the left is a replica of the dagger from the tomb of Tutankhamun. It must have been incredibly precious during his lifetime because it's made of iron.
Iron.
Thousands of years before the Ice Age, meteorites were the only source of pure iron. So a star that fell from the sky, bringing a substance that's harder than anything they'd known before, would have been a dramatic event. No wonder they used it to forge a weapon for the godlike pharaoh.
Indeed. We can examine the showcase, and then we can examine the statue, and then we can talk to Westmacott.
Aha! This shows how the ancient Egyptians were able to move the heavy blocks of stone to build their pyramids and temples. They used ropes, wooden sleds, and poles as levers.
Fair enough.
These exhibits aren't originals, of course. They're reconstructed, based on old pictures. Nonetheless, it's impressive how they managed to build monuments like the pyramids with such simple tools.
And now we shall examine the statue, and then finally talk to Lady Westmacott.
This is Akhenaten, the only pharaoh whose portrait I always recognize.
Oh?
He has a very unusual head.
Any particular reason?
Akhenaten was the husband of Nefertiti and the father of Tutankhamen, a famous family. But he went down in history as the pharaoh who wanted to eliminate the old gods and replace them with a single god. The priests took offense, and he died of unknown causes.
Finally, we shall talk to Lady Westmacott. Hello.
Impressive, isn't it? Thousands of years old, and still beautiful.
That it is. They dug it out of the sand near Thebes over 50 years ago. I was there.
Oh?
Really?
I met my husband there. He was an assistant on the dig and was ordered by the director of the excavation to take care of that writer. I financed many excavations in the following years, here in Egypt and in the Near East. I visited my husband, together with our son. It was the best time of my life.
Oh.
But a museum is no place for nostalgia. What can I do for you?
We could talk about fulfilled life.
You've had a long and successful life, Lady Westmacott.
What's that supposed to mean, Mr. Zellner? That I should be ready to leave the stage? Because I'm not.
Oh, I didn't want...
I'm here because life is here, Constable.
Oh?
Or was. I have never lived as much as I have here. No fame, no money can buy that.
I understand.
I'm sorry, Constable Zellner. Such an outburst isn't fitting for a woman of my age, and an English woman at that. Let's talk about something else.
Let's talk about your son.
Your son? You haven't said much about him. Or perhaps you did, just not by name.
You're an attentive listener, Mr. Zellner.
Thank you.
I was wondering why you knew so much about Miss Miller's unhappy marriage.
I stopped paying his bar tabs, stopped paying reporters to hush things up. He got to know her and went with her to America to start a new life. You can change your name easily, but not who you really are. He has my eyes, doesn't he?
The Part 2 novel is for him, isn't it?
If I couldn't provide Matthew with a good father, then at least I can provide him with a good start in life.
So now it's revealed. Matty's father is Lady Westmacott's son. And they had an argument. Well, basically, by the sounds of it, Lady Westmacott and her son were always having arguments. But Miss Miller and her husband had an argument. They broke up, and that's who the Part 2 novel is for. It's for Matty. It's for Matty.
Will you attend the gala tonight, Lady Westmacott?
But of course. The antiquities, the delightful atmosphere. And who knows, perhaps there will be another spectacular burglary.
And your cruise?
The ship doesn't leave until tomorrow. And believe me, I'd cancel the cruise for this.
Indeed, but what about the murder investigations?
When I was working on the ship, I felt like one of the detectives in your novels.
You were lucky. It was an unusual murder. Most murders happen in the heat of the moment or are committed by idiots. They're uninspired. But Gebhardt thought it through. He could have succeeded.
I don't know. He made too many mistakes.
He couldn't have known that the Baroness, almost unconscious from the drugs, would lock her cabin door.
But that was a risk. The plan was too complicated and sloppily executed.
You certainly are a harsh critic, Mr. Zellner.
He could have shot her on the side deck and thrown the weapon into the sea. With no witnesses, no one would have suspected him.
How boring.
Or if it had to be a complicated plan, then he should have worked more carefully. Should have thought of everything, had a plan B in place.
Maybe he didn't have enough time. He had only a few hours to plan and commit the murder.
True.
Still, he should have covered his tracks more carefully. The audio tape, the bloody glove, none of that should have stayed in the medical center.
It's true. Let's talk about Dr. Gebhardt.
Do you think that Dr. Gebhardt was the Raven?
I don't.
Was? Do you think he's dead?
The letter sounded like he committed suicide.
There's your answer. Does that sound like the Raven? Being unmasked? Taking the easy way out?
My sentiments exactly. The Raven wouldn't commit murder, get caught, and then jump into the sea.
You don't want everything to be over, do you?
It's my chance to do something great. It can't be over yet.
At least you solved the murder of the Baroness. You're a hero.
That's not how the newspapers see it. Nor I. Something's missing. I can achieve more.
Careful, Constable. He who flies too close to the sun...
Is that the myth of Icarus?
To be honest, no. The story is Greek, and was only written down 1,000 years later. I was counting on the dramatic effect.
It worked.
Oh, worked well enough.
It did. Let's talk about the Raven, shall we?
Let's assume that the thief is still out there. Who is he?
If all this were a novel, then it would be the one you least expect.
Is that intended to be a confession, Lady Westmacott?
What do we know about the new Raven?
He's a man who would stop at nothing.
Must it be a man? And how do we know that it's just one person? There could be several people collectively pretending to be the Raven.
True.
So, we don't know anything.
That's not completely true. We know that he or she wants the eye of the Sphinx, and will probably strike here, assuming he or she hasn't already gone.
It may be the end of the story for me, Lady Westmacott. Inspector Legrand will arrive soon and send me to the hotel. I'll return tonight for the gala, hoping all the while that the Raven does dare to attempt a burglary. Tomorrow morning, I'll have to return to Switzerland. What an unsatisfactory ending that would be.
It wouldn't be a triumphant ending, but it could be worse. At least you'd still be alive, Constable.
As always, it was an entertaining and enlightening chat, Lady Westmacott.
I'm going to miss our little chats, Constable Zellner. Goodbye.
Well, when we come back, I think it will be time to talk to Matt and find out if he wouldn't mind Professor Lucien going with them. So, when we come back, folks, will the Raven strike to claim the second eye? Who knows? Zellner seems to hope so. Oh, there's one more thing I can examine over there. I will examine that now. Why not?
A figure of Imhotep, who comes in peace from around 2700 BC. The first polymath known by name, godfather of medicine, architect of the first pyramids, and according to legend, the inventor of Egyptian writing. He certainly achieved more than me in his life. He was a legend. The Greeks called him a god. The Romans still honored him 3,000 years after his death. Even today, scholars offer a drop of ink to Imhotep when they begin a new project. Really impressive.
Very impressive. So when we come back, folks, we'll talk to Matt. I'll catch you next time. I'll see you then. Later. Maybe Westmacott is the Raven! Dun dun dun!